Hi guys, welcome back to the show. So time now to motivate you. Now this morning, I get to speak to somebody that I know personally. Yeah, but in class. And it will be my first time getting the opportunity to ask him questions that I'll not be graded on. But this man is a lawyer, author, and also a lecturer. You maybe know him, you've read about him, you've heard about him, maybe somehow. Maybe you were his student, you've experienced him somewhere, you've encountered him somewhere. But his name is Lom Nuku Ahlijah. And this morning, one of the main reasons why we're having this conversation is the fact that a very niche market area that a lot of people don't talk about, Ghana energy law and policy, that he is taking time to write a book about that you and I may just need. But it will take time to learn a bit about him, how he started, why it started for him, writing as a lecturer and teaching and all of that. So good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so here on the show, what we do mostly is we talk to people who have actually, gone ahead, break ceilings, go above and beyond, and then we motivate young people who, get to watch us this morning. So before we even talk about the book, let's get to know you a bit. Where were you born? Do you ever say your age?
Of course, I don't
You do?
mind. Yes.
You do? How old are you?
I'm on the 4th floor. That should be okay, right?
But your grade looks like somebody who's 70. So for 40,
I actually love the grade.
You do?
Yes, I do.
Why? It makes you look like a professor.
Maybe more
and,
distinguished. I don't know.
I understand. And so, did you ever know that you're going to be a lecturer? Did you know that you're going to write? Did you ever know you're going to be a lawyer?
Okay, well, so for law, I knew I was going to be a lawyer because when I finished secondary school, I was contemplating what to do. And I got the chance to speak to a career counselor actually at the time, who was at the University of Ghana. So that was before I went to university. And we went through a number of exercises. We discussed my strengths, weaknesses, and everything. And it was a very useful process. And through that, I settled on law as what I wanted to do. But at the time, you couldn't take law as a first degree. It needed to be postgraduate. At the time, there was nothing like going straight from secondary school to study law because they had changed the format. So I needed to do a first degree before reading law. So I had to do my first degree, and I took psychology and sociology. So I did a combined major in those two areas. So when I completed, I did my national service with foreign affairs, and then I came back to school to read law.
Okay.
Exactly.
Was it different experience? Because then you were in that university already.
Yes.
And then you had to go back again. Was it a different experience?
Completely different experience because, as I'm sure you know, law is a different, animal. Let's put it that way. When I was in undergrad studying psychology and sociology, it was still challenging and tasking, but I would say it was more relaxed. When I went to law school, basically, I had to give my life up for the law, as you know. Especially if you want to be a good lawyer, you really want to know your stuff. You basically have to commit to it.
Now you know those who are depressing us. But on campus, what was student life for you? So at what level were you SRC president? Was it when you came to the law school or before the law school?
No, so that was before the law school, when I was in undergrad. So 2005, 2006 academic year, that's when I was SRC president in Legon.
Okay.
So it was after that when I did finish my service and came back that I came to read law. So for law, I wasn't into student politics, but in undergrad, I was actively involved in student politics, which, very exciting. I'm very active as well in politics generally, but it's really, really a good, experience for me. I had so many memorable moments from then, which continue to shape my life now. So,
Did you have all of your education in Ghana?
yes, generally, except my master's. So apart from my first degree law, of course, I also went to the Ghana School of Law for my professional part of, my legal training. But I did my master's in Harvard University, so that's where I did my
I mean, the obvious question would be why Harvard, even though we all know that is the world's best, but why Harvard?
Why not?
What's the culture that you picked up from there that you really would love if you had the opportunity to bring it in Ghana?
It's interesting you ask that question because I remember when I was applying for the visa to go to school, that's one of the questions that I was asked at the interview at the embassy, US embassy. And then when I attempted to answer, the gentleman stopped me and just started laughing. I was like, don't worry about that. We know why you want to go to this school. And it's obvious because, as you said, it is like the top school in the world, basically, across the various disciplines. And for law, it is number one as well. And if I have the opportunity to go to the best law school in the world, obviously, I'll take it. And a lot of that depends on what you do before, of course, as we are talking about. So to the young people, you really need to push yourself, strive for excellence and go for it. Then you can get opportunity to go to anywhere that you want to go, more or less, exactly. But it was a really good experience. I learned so much from there, and we can talk more about that if you.
Is this your first book that you have authored?
No, so this is my second, but the first one was co-authored with one of my senior colleagues, Clement
Okay.
Akapam. So that's on commercial law,
Okay.
which is what I teach at GIMPA,
Okay.
more or less on a day-to-day basis.
Oh yeah, and recently we heard that you've just been giving another role to play at GIMPA as head of department. How's that coming up for you?
It's okay. So far, so good. So I've been acting since about April, thereabouts, when Dr. Tufo had to go to another national assignment. And so I've been learning the ropes before substantively being appointed, effective from September 1 this year. So it's good. So far, so good. I have lots of support from my colleagues, the students, and the staff as well. So it's going well.
I mean, among all the books and articles or papers that I love to read, Ghana energy law and policy would not be the option at all. I would never go close to a book like this until maybe I'm encountered with a challenge in the energy area. Then maybe you're looking for resource points or materials to read. And so tell me, at what point does writing this book come to you? Was it when you were in school in Harvard or when you were here in Ghana?
Okay, so I guess your question is in two parts, so let me answer it this way. So first, energy impacts all of us because the lights are on now, we are in this studio, it's being transmitted, people are watching all over the world. It's because of electricity, basically. So power is so pervasive in our lives, but we don't take a moment to actually look at it. And for me, I was fortunate to have an experience to work in the energy sector for a considerable amount of time, almost a decade, in the legal sphere. So I came to appreciate the legal part, the policy part, and how it shapes everything around us. I mean, when you listen to even the budget reading or most of the discourse that we have now, even around the economy, you see that a significant part of the discussion comes back to, for example, energy sector debt, which is huge and has a big impact on our economy because of how power is required for almost everything. So that's how. So I'm very fascinated about the area because I worked with it. I became so excited about it. And when I was in-house in the Ghana Grid Company in those days, we used to have lots of meetings with people who are interested in investing in the sector and so on, asking questions. And somehow I felt like they were not getting those answers from their lawyers because if, for example, you're a private investor looking to invest in Ghana with their power projects, for example, I expect that by the time you start meeting regulatory bodies or agencies, you know exactly what the law says about this and that, and you get right to it.
But most for a regular person, is this your expectation of a regular person?
Oh no, not a regular person, but somebody.
Or for somebody
who has decided that they want to invest in a particular area. You need to do your homework.
Okay.
And the interesting thing about the power sector is that it's heavily regulated. You can't do anything in the power sector without getting authorization or permit for it. And so I found myself always in meetings where we had to basically educate people across the board. So I started nurturing this idea about a book that will make it easy for anybody to just pick up and read generally. Even when I listen to media discussions about the power sector, it's always so interesting because sometimes people are confusing transmission with generation, or confusing transmission with distribution, and things like that. But like I said, since this impacts all of us, we need to be knowledgeable about it. And so what I've attempted to do with this book is to put it in language that anybody can read. So it doesn't have to be a legal person per se, an engineer, or a policy person. A lay person could pick up this book and really appreciate how the power sector impacts all our lives. And so that's what drove me to it. And
is there any uniqueness to the energy sector in this country as you would find in other countries? What's very unique about it?
Okay, so every country is different, but Ghana, we have a very peculiar situation where, for instance, with our regulation, we have two main regulators, I'll say. So we have the financial regulator, whom we all know as PURC, Public Utilities Regulatory Commission. So they approve rates, tariffs. That's how come we're able to, we hear every quarter that, they've increased tariffs or reduced or what have you. And then we have the technical regulator, that's the Energy Commission. So the Energy Commission focuses on, the engineering part of things. The permits you need to be able to build a power plant, to run a transmission line, to do distribution lines. When there's a new area and ECG has to come there's regulation that goes with that. And so we have that system where we have two main, and then, of course, we have other I'll say, regulators. For example, Environmental Protection Agency, because every power project impacts the environment. I'm sure you've heard talks about Ghana wanting to go nuclear. So we've approved, so nuclear, there's a nuclear regulatory authority. If, for example, you want to do anything related to power and it has to do with hydro, you also have the Water Resources Commission. So you can't just build a dam to produce power. You need permits from different agencies and so on. And so we have a very regulated area which has numerous aspects, several regulators, and they all have a role to play in order for any power project to come to completion. So it's very intricate and it's not organized in one place. So part of what this book is seeking to do is to harmonize it. When you take the chapter on, say, electricity transmission, when you read the entire chapter, you should be able to understand fully all the players that have a role in transmission-related work and everything like that, as well as generation and distribution, and of course, environmental issues. And of course, Ghana is also within the context of ECOWAS, so there's an ECOWAS level power activity where we are integrated, I'm sure you know, to our neighbors. So Ghana supplies power to Togo, Benin, to Burkina Faso. There are cross-border issues there. Of course, ECOWAS also sits in Africa, so there's an AU level regulation. So the book deals with all of that, from national, sub-regional, as well as continental.
So the basic consumer can pick this book, read it, and then understand.
Absolutely. For most consumers at home, there are interfaces with, say, a distribution company, like let's say ECG,
right,
or Netco. And that's where we have issues with billing, with metering. So the book deals with that. So you know your rights, your responsibilities, how you can, for example, take on the distribution company for what they've done or not done.
If they tear me that I think is not fair, I know how I can go about it.
Exactly. There's a complaints procedure that PRC has. You can raise issues with any utility. They go through a process and they can be penalized for not doing the right thing and all that. So there's so much that everybody needs.
This one will sweet somebody watching.
Yes, and interesting, one of the things that is coming up now, especially for consumers, is what we call net metering.
What's that?
So basically, there's regulation to invest in, say, solar, rooftop solar in your house, where you can use or consume for your house, as well as you can even feed back into the distribution grid at a rate that will enable you to offset your costs. So for example, if you have the means and you can invest, for example, in solar, through that net metering mechanism, you could even feed back into the distribution grid. And at the end of the month, you may not need to even pay a particular cost for the electricity, because as much as you take from the grid, you also give it to the grid so you can offset it, which is something that the Energy Commission has developed. They're pushing that, and there's a lot more room for investment in that area, which consumers can also get involved. So really
how does this book harmonizes the very complex sector of energy? So you'd find the legal, you find economic, you find many other variables which I've seen that you've highlighted. But how does it harmonize it?
Okay, so the idea is that, because as I mentioned, it's heavily regulated, the sector. And then because of how it impacts society and our economy in particular, there are always, initiatives by government, by international organizations and so on to shape the way the sector goes. And so if you look at, for example, the legal side alone, you'll still miss out on a lot because, for example, if you just cast our mind back to the budget that I just read, for example, the finance minister talks about what efforts government is doing to even prepare for net zero. And net zero has to do with the environment, and a significant part of it has to do with the burning of fossil fuels, which is a big thing in power generation because all these power plants are fossil fuel based and so on. So initiatives that are taken by government, which, for example, have not yet become law, but are policy, have an impact also on how the energy sector will develop. So if you look at just legal, you will miss some of the things. If you look at just policy, you are obviously not seeing all the picture. So what this book has done is to harmonize it. So it highlights the policies that are applicable. Some of them are also enacted into law, but not all of them.
Okay.
But because it's government policy, it drives decision making on power. And so if you don't pay attention to the policy aspect of it, you will not get a full picture. So the idea is that I want an engineer, a policy person, a legal person, a lay person to be able to take this book, read it, and understand how it impacts.
So guys, I'm projecting the book on your screens. By now you can see, so there's pre-order available as well. The book is pretty simple. The cover is nice, and so you can easily identify it in the bookshop. I know that it's been launched tomorrow at some point. And before we go to the launch and maybe wrap on the conversation, did the book address the history, energy sector, like the stages in which this country has gone through in terms of the energy sector? Did they address that?
Absolutely.
Good.
So that's the opening chapter, because it's good to have an overview of how things have come. I'm sure we all remember a few years ago, a lot of discussion around what we call doomsday, right?
I hope it featured. It
featured. and the interesting thing about that is, from the history, the last episode, which was around, 2003, 2005, was not the first. We've had it a couple of times in our history. So the book deals with the various occurrences, the reforms that were triggered as a result of the doomsday, and efforts that were made to rectify it. So I'm sure, for example, since the last one till now, we haven't had any major, incidents because of, the various reforms that came up as a result of it. And that's how it always works. If you look at our history, we've had moments in the power sector, and how those moments have driven policies.
Who wrote the foreword of the book?
So, Engineer William Amuna. So that's the former chief executive of the Ghana Grid Company, who also was an advisor to the Minister of Energy, also advisor to the Millennium Development Authority. So, I mean, he's an engineer with decades of experience, has served his country quite well, and appreciates the various things that are discussed in this book. So, like I said, it's not just a legal book, and as you can see, the foreword is by an engineer.
Okay.
And that's
whoever this book is dedicated to, do they know that is dedicated to? Because we're launching it tomorrow, and
they don't know.
It's
a surprise.
So we can't say it on TV today.
No, not yet.
Okay. But there's pre-order available. But tell us about the launch tomorrow quickly.
Okay, so the launch will be at Gimpa. It's at Gimpa because that's my home in terms of academia, and I like for people to come to our home to see how we do things there. Our previous book, with the one I mentioned with Clement, also we hosted at Gimpa as well. So it will be around 4 p.m. tomorrow. It's not generally open to the public, but at least after the launch, the book will be available in most outlets. No, not expensive at all.
It's expensive. Okay, but the price we'll get to know from tomorrow. Yes. Or you're able to tell us the price?
Well, yes, it's 500 CDs.
Okay.
It will be 500 CDs after tomorrow.
Okay.
And it will only be available from the 22nd, which is Thursday.
Which is 22nd should be Wednesday.
Wednesday, yes.
Okay. Well, people think that because of your gray, your suit and all of that, you don't do anything for fun. So for a lawyer and author, what do you do for fun?
Well, there are many things. I like to relax because obviously my work is stressful, working in private practice, also teaching. So I like to take things easy, spend time with friends, sit around, chat and discuss things that are going on. It relaxes me, of course. I try to do exercise from time to time, but it's not working out very well for me because I'm not getting the time.
What are you exercising for? To lose weight or to do what?
No,
I can recommend some teas for you to try.
Just to stay healthy. I feel like I'm okay.
Okay.
I am in terms of my weight generally, but just to, strengthen the heart, perhaps, feel more.
Which one do you like doing most? Teaching, being a lawyer, or writing?
I love all of them, but writing is the most difficult, I can assure you.
Okay.
Yes, it takes a lot to write. You have to really commit to it and dedicate yourself to it. So, for example, this book that you're seeing so nicely put together is been a journey. So
how many years?
About 6 years to put this one together, yes, because for this particular area, there's no reference for Ghana. This will be like the first of its kind. So doing the research is also very tasking. And then, as usual, when you're writing as well, you have challenges sometimes. For example, you might have a writer's block. So sometimes for like a month, you can't even write anything.
Right.
And then the more you review the writing, the more it becomes familiar to you, so it's very challenging. But so those are the things that you have to push yourself, you have to be disciplined. And so for any young person out there watching this, you want to write, maybe you have ideas. My advice would simply be consistent. It doesn't matter even if you write a page a day. It's better than skipping
Writing
it.
at all.
Exactly.
Okay.
If you try to say, look, let me block an entire weekend and I'll write 50 pages, it hardly happens because the weekends are full. You have weddings, you have funerals, you have all kinds of things going on. Your
And you have assignments.
You have assignments, your family,
Your reading list.
commitments, exactly.
Tall ones.
Exactly. So you won't be able to have dedicated time to really to work on one major project. What I found is that a bite a day, you do something small every day towards your goals, you hit them eventually. Exactly.
Are you going to write many other books, and will all of it be academia?
Well, I have several books I'm working on now.
Okay.
So hopefully, first quarter next year, there should be another one out.
Okay.
The idea is, well, not mainly for academia, but straddles different areas. So, for example, this book, I expect practitioner to also be able to use it, academics to be able to use it, and lay people to be able to use it. Some of the books will be focused on heavily, for example, on maybe the legal sector. So, for example, the next book that is coming out will be on labor law. Labor law, but it will be heavily legal because this one is a book that, for example, lawyers and law students will be able to go to for reference.
Okay.
So that one is different from this one. This one is more general. Anybody who has anything to do with electricity, which is all of us can read it, but not
this.
Maybe that one will have a different audience. So it depends on different things. I'm working on something that will be for somebody who wants to decide whether I want to go to law school, because I find, having taught for a number of years, that sometimes people are surprised when they get to law school because they are not prepared for what law school really is. And then even when you do get in, you might have challenges finishing because it can be really tasking. There's no two ways about that. And so I'm working on something along those lines as well, which means to be general, which means that anybody who is considering law can read it. Someone who has started the law can read it. Somebody who needs, someone needs a little motivation to finish the law can read it. So I'm working on a number of things. Some are single projects, in other words, just by myself. I have others that I'm working in collaboration with other authors and so on, which those ones go easier, I can assure you. When you have more than one person, you can motivate each other more and so on, which is another thing that I think I would like to say to people who are watching us. It's collaboration is good. Find the right person and you can really do a lot more.
Okay. Thank you for sharing your journey with us, especially your writing journey, and telling us especially why you wrote this book. I'm sure that we can find you on www.something.
Yes. Okay. So my personal page, www.lomahlijah.com. So that's my full name.com. Of course, the book will be available on all major outlets, so that will come out from tomorrow. We'll be advertising, of course, on social media, on various platforms, just so that people can know where to get the book, and that's it.
Thank you for speaking to us. Have a good one, and wish you the best tomorrow.
Yes, thank you very much, and all the best too.
All right, guys. Yes, I'll bring you all the gist when there's another book ready, but let's start with this one first of all. That's just about it for Motivation Monday. We've been speaking to Lom Nuku Ahlijah, author, lawyer, and lecturer. Okay, guys, let's plug you on this more on the show this day.